Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Osmani, and I am a business counselor with Pace Business. I am honored to be hosting today's webinar for Swan Doe. She wasn't able to attend today. Pace Business, we support small businesses across greater Los Angeles and surrounding areas. We offer one-on-one business counseling, small business financing. We also have the entrepreneurial training program that Swan Doe conducts, as well as business courses and webinars designed to help entrepreneurs grow and succeed, such as this one. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. You are currently in listening mode, and this webinar is being recorded. Please use the raise hand icon if you would like to unmute and ask a question, and also use the question and answer Q&A feature to post your questions during the webinar. Also, please complete our survey when the webinar ends. Your feedback is always appreciated, and it helps support these business courses and webinars. Today's session is part of our 10-part webinar series, which provides practical roadmap for creating and executing a strategic marketing plan. Throughout this series, we cover topics such as audience development, digital marketing channels, business growth strategies, seasonal campaigns, re-engagement efforts, and building a structured content plan and calendar. Today's topic is defining your audience, the power of buyer personas. We're also very pleased to have Patty Ross with us today. Patty brings over 25 years of marketing experience and has helped businesses across a wide range of industries better understand how to market their brands both online and offline. At this time, I'd like to welcome Patty Ross.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Let me share my slides here. Hold on one second. Make sure I have no technical difficulties. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Everybody seeing those okay? Seeing the slides? Big enough? All good? Yes? Get a hand raise. They're seeing the power of the slides. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Never know. And hopefully it's big enough. I'm getting this weird thing where it's showing kind of a black border around it. So I'm trying to fix that yesterday when I was teaching the class. Couldn't figure out why that was, but hopefully everybody's seeing it big enough to see all the slides. So yes, welcome to Defining Your Audience, the Power of Buyer Personas. So, as Monty already introduced me a little bit, I have been in the online space for 100 years. You can see here since the internet dinosaurs roamed the earth, as I like to say. So I worked for a gourmet gift basket company when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they were traditional e-commerce or so not an e-commerce, they were a catalog and retail. And I started their e-commerce business and brought it to $1 million plus part of their business way back then before we even had social media. Right. So, but I've been in the wine industry actually 22 years this year. I need to update the slide, but I do work with all types of industries here, business to business, business to consumer, a little business to government as well. I do teach all over. I teach for PACE. These classes. I also am the marketing teacher for their entrepreneur training program that they do twice a year. Teach for Scores and SBDC. So you'll find me somewhere around the universe of organizations teaching every week. And I do serve, and I recommend you serve if you can your local business community. I serve on a couple of boards here in the Los Angeles area, Chamber of Commerce, as well as the National Association of Women Business Owners, as well, and BizFed serve on a committee there. So if you have the opportunity to serve on boards or ambassadors or committees, definitely do that. It helps your business community as well as your own business. So get out there and do some servant leadership. So there we are. There's me. So let's talk about a marketing plan. And of course, we're breaking off today to the buyer personas. But of course, I love sharing this that 50% of small businesses do not have a documented marketing plan. And you could see here you're 30% more likely to experience growth with one than those without one. So I highly recommend a marketing plan. I teach a class called Marketing Plan 101. It might be somewhere in the PACE calendar as well, but I have it recorded on my YouTube channel as well. But definitely important to have a business plan overall, but then a marketing plan to back that up. So I always say before you go any further, know exactly where you need to go, right? We're not going to hop on the metro here in LA and not have a plan which one we're going to hop on if we want to go downtown or wherever, right? You're going to look up which one you have and you're going to have a plan. Otherwise, we're just going to like ride around and waste our time and money, which I don't like to do either one of those. right? So this is from my marketing plan class. I'm just teasing it for today, right? Because buyer personas is the spinoff that we're doing today, right? Have goals in mind for your marketing. We're going to talk about buyer personas all morning here. Doing the analysis, right? SWOT analysis, if you haven't done that for your business, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, competitor analysis, your unique selling proposition against your competitors, right? What does that look like? Your story, your branding, your messaging, your visuals, do they speak to your ideal audience, right? So again, that's why number two is so important, right? The channels are where you're marketing to, right? Your social media, email, whatever, advertising, etc. Having a plan in place. What is it going to look like to get your marketing done? Who do you need to hire to do it? Are you going to do it? Or what tools and processes and budgets and everything that you need? And then knowing how to look under the hood, right? Looking how to analytics, measuring it, and do I need to change anything? Is it working? Is it not working? Right? We don't want to spend that time and money and realize it's not really working. So definitely important to have a plan in place, right? Like I said, I'm breaking out. I broke this out as a spin-off class from this one because it is so important. And I find that a lot of businesses really don't have this nailed down. Okay, so can't say I'm help everyone because you might be helping no one if you're saying you're helping everyone. So it does help to niche that down or have the right messaging for everyone, right? So 5 reasons you need a marketing plan. Of course, I'm going to keep harping on this one. Definitely will maximize your marketing budget and return on investment if you have one. You said 30% more likely to have success. Definitely will help you create consistency. That C word you're going to hear a lot with marketing. You've got to be consistent all the time. It's not a one and done, shout out to the world once and they all come running, right? Definitely encourages deeper thought about your business and marketing, right? There's a lot of outside forces that can affect our business, things we should be aware of locally, regionally, nationally, globally, potentially, right? Last year here, and I know some of you are not in California, but here in the Los Angeles area, right in January, we're dealing with fires, right? Major fires. I had clients in both areas dealing with that. We had ice here, middle of the year. We had, of course, we're dealing with tariffs and the economy. So all of these things, the weather, right? Weather can affect some businesses, right? There's flooding in certain areas, fires in certain areas. So being aware of the things that can affect your business, do you have to change things, pivot, be ready for these things? So definitely having a plan, an emergency plan in place, but also a marketing and business plan in place for those contingencies. Will help unify your team, of course, right? If you're all walking the same walk and talking the same talk about your business and marketing, very important. And then definitely just improves your chances of accomplishing your marketing goals if you have a written plan down. So definitely very important to have that, as I said. And I share this with my classes. I found this on LinkedIn a year or so ago on the left, the top reasons startups fail. And I was looking at it, I go, well, each of these are kind of tied into marketing. So I expanded on that on the right to show you how they can be tied in. Now, not everybody's a startup, but this can happen in any stage, depending on if you've planned for this or not, right? So the top one ran out of cash, failed to raise new capital, right? That's an overall business plan, but it could be poorly executed marketing. You spent your money in the wrong place. I just talked to a gentleman who told me he spent a couple $100,000 on marketing that really got him nowhere. He used his COVID money. So he had the wrong people, maybe the wrong plan. I don't know. That's unfortunately, I'm in the autopsy stage of that with him. No market need, right? Very important to do that market research. Is it a product or service that people want, right? Getting out competed, right? Have you done that competitor analysis? I mentioned that in the marketing plan. Doesn't mean that because somebody else is doing it, that you can't also do it, but being aware of what the competitors are doing out there. I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday. I said, well, I said that to him and I said, but I don't know if I'd necessarily want to open a coffee shop next to a Starbucks. And he says, well, I know of a pop-up coffee place in Hollywood that, or I think it's West Hollywood, that is right across the street from a Starbucks, and they're doing a bang up business. And they go, they really have to have their stuff right in order to be, open up across from a Starbucks and be successful at it, So it doesn't mean you can't compete, but just be aware of what your competitors and how you can do it better than them, right? And why your customers would come to you rather than going to an established Starbucks, as an example. Flawed business model, right? So definitely having a business plan is important. Regulatory legal challenges that could be, how you market around them if you do have any legal challenges. Pricing and cost issues. Pricing is one of the four P's of marketing. So it's definitely a marketing basic to understand if you're pricing your products right out there against competitors and what the market is right now with that. Not the right team. It's like, do you have the right people for marketing and overall, of course? Mistimed product. That's definitely doing some market research as well to make sure that you are launching a product at the right time. So definitely important. Now, this one, marketing cannot overcome a bad product or service. So you could help market it, but if it turns out it's a bad product or service, no amount of marketing is going to overcome that. You need to fix the product or the service, right? Disharmony among team and investors, sure, that can happen in any business. Of course, depending on the size, you might not have investors or a big team, but I've seen that. I've worked in those situations where the people who are making the business decisions were fighting the people who are building the software, for example. So making sure that you have all of that in place. A pivot gone bad, right? We did a lot of pivoting, the P word from COVID 6 years ago, if you can believe that. But make sure before you pivot, right? And I call this entrepreneurial squirrel syndrome, ESS, right? I hear this all the time, like I'm doing this, but hey, I want to add this, I want to change that, where they really haven't given the first squirrel some good attention and feeding and caring, and then they want to move on to the next squirrel, or they decide to do a totally different squirrel, like, hey, I'm a business coach, but now I want to sell ice cream. I'm totally unrelated, right? Could be possible, but are you going to be able to manage both of those squirrels that are totally different? So you can pivot, but make sure you have done a well-researched pre-pivot analysis before you try to do that. And then burned out, lack of passion. That can happen any stage of the business. You have the wrong people, you're just tired of it. You probably maybe because you're struggling, right? So entrepreneurship does take some ride the roller coaster, and it's not as easy as getting your 9 to 5 paycheck going on. So definitely takes a iron heart and strategy there. So definitely want to avoid these. Do as I'm kind of talking about, have that market research done, have a marketing plan and a business plan in place. Okay, so can't say that enough. Very important. And just a quick housekeeping, we do have both chat and Q&A in this meeting. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and drop them in Q&A. I'm going to pull that back up again. And any comments or anything or networking, you're welcome to do in the chat. So you're welcome. So the world of marketing and advertising, I share this in all my classes, right? Ever expanding world of marketing and advertising, right? Where do you go to spend your time and money? And that's when, if you have the plan first, know where your customers are hanging out, right? Not all of these are appropriate for everybody based on just where your customers are, budget, right? Some, traditional stuff like TV and radio and print ads and billboards and direct mail, public relations, promotional products, networking, which you can do online and offline, right? And then the digital space, right? We have websites for how many decades now, followed by internet advertising. Social media has been around just over 25 years now. It's hard to believe. Email marketing just as long. Search engine optimization, which we now have generative engine optimization. I need to add that. That's the AI that's added to Google and search engines. Blogging, Wi-Fi, text marketing, ad retargeting, affiliate marketing. I did that, was that 25 years ago with the gift basket company I mentioned. So it's been around a while. Social media influencers, that's very new, compared to how long social media has been around, a new job for some people, right? So where do you go, right? And that's why you're here, to have a plan in place and know where your customers are before you go out there. I can't change, Cruz mentioned, I can't change the slide size. There's something going on with the I don't know if it's PowerPoint or Zoom, but it's adding a border around the slide. So I'm hoping it's hopefully big enough for everybody to see. So sorry about that. But you'll get the slides afterwards as well in the recording. So why marketing might feel hard? Does it feel hard to anybody here? Like raise your hand, say yes in chat. Is it hard? So most small business marketing breaks down because there's too many options. I just showed you that, right? That the universe, scattered efforts. You're trying to like try everything out. You're unclear about your audience, right? So you tend to have more generic messaging. right? Because you're trying to appeal to everybody, and then that appeals to nobody. No plan in place, so you're inconsistent, and you're not tracking. You're not looking under the hood. So I already kind of mentioned, I'm going to do a lot of repeating in this because it's important. Let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to accommodate, but I have the chat. Oh, but it's in the corner. So I'm not sure how it's blocking the slides. Oops, I'm going backwards. So I apologize for that if you're not seeing it. The 6 decisions every marketing plan must answer, right? Who are you trying to reach? Which is why you're here today. What do they need and want, right? What's their problem and what kind of outcome are they wanting from that? Why you should say why us versus alternatives. So that'd be positioning, your unique selling propositions, your proof, social proof. What should you say, right? Your message, your what's your messaging at the different buying stages? Where will we show up? And this is you really. What channels, again, what channels you're going to hit, and how are you know it's working? Again, that whole circle we're talking about. So start with one goal, right? So we might want to do all of these, right? We want to increase our leads, right? Grow on, maybe have online orders, grow foot traffic if you have a physical location, improve your repeat business, get reviews, right? Testimonials. Maybe you want to build an email list, right? So again, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? So you need to know like how many leads we have now coming in, where are they coming from? That's one thing I hear all the time. I talk to business owners every day, schedule their strategy calls with me. And I ask them, like, do you know where your orders come from? Do you know if they come from Google? How many come from your email list? Or do you have comes in? And most of them are like, they have no clue, right? They're not measuring it all, right? So we can't repeat what we, again, can't, if we can't measure it, we can't manage it. We can't repeat it if we don't know where it's coming from. So very important to make sure that every step of the way you are managing how somebody comes in that front door, either online or in person, and where what brought them to that door. So you can, kind of lather, rinse, and repeat. Okay. So who is your customer, right? Everyone is not your customer, right? I say, are you fishing in the ocean or fishing in a pond, right? Fishing in an ocean means that could lead, you're trying to catch everything and everybody, all the fish, right? From the guppies to the whales, right? And if you can catch a whale with a fishing rod, it's going to lead to weak messaging, right? Higher marketing costs, because again, you're throwing all that spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, and that might be expensive spaghetti and probably lower conversion, right? So some of you might have multiple audiences, but you have to make sure again you're speaking to those audience. So I want to know if you can share in the chat, because I forgot to ask that question. Share in the chat what type of business you have, what do you exactly do, and who is your customer? If you want to share that. And does anybody, while you're typing that out, please share in the room. Anybody have a product or a service that services the senior market, say like 60, 65 plus, and say primarily, not like, you have a bakery and you sell cookies and old people like them too. All right. Do you anybody have any, even just put in the chat if you do, like, is it a product or service that's primarily a senior product or service? Let me see if we have anybody here. I'll explain while I'm asking that. Or even at the other end, if you have a product or service that services, kids, say under 18. Okay, so we have, let's see, skincare clinic and senior care facility. So you have a senior care facility. Is that separate than the skincare clinic, Janet? There's a skincare for a senior care facility. Web design for artists, freelancers. Okay, so that'd be for anybody, right? So I'm thinking Janet's probably the closest one here that has a senior care facility. So why I'm asking that, okay, there's another one, Florida's Treasure Coast Senior Placement Solution. So the folks that are being placed in your senior placement, I'm assuming you help them get placed into assisted livings or SNFs or whatever, right? So they're the primary market, and they might be the one you're trying to reach. How you reach them, right, is going to be different than how the next step down, right? Their kids or their grandkids might be the one that's placing them, the parent somewhere, or putting them in a facility. Like my 85-year-old father, I do everything for him. You are not going to reach out to him to sell any of your products or services. Everything comes through me at this point. So how you reach me as his child is going to be different than how you reached him. If you were going to reach him, if he was still out there doing his thing, you would have reached him reading the LA Times newspaper, the physical paper he'd read every day. You find me on the digital LA Times, or social media or email, right? So he used to do email as well. So you have to think of the secondary market, how you do social media, and show pictures of, say, seniors, gray hair seniors, or pictures of a family with kids. I might tune out. I don't have kids, or I'm not a family. I cover my gray hair, and that's not me, right? But if you showed, like, say, a daughter and a father, then I'm like, oh, okay, that looks like us, right? So same thing on the other end, kids, right? So if you have a product or service for kids, you're going to be selling to the wallet, otherwise known as the parents, right? So that's different, right? Some of you might have a product or service where you're going out to where the kids hang out, and then they go to the parent, they go to the wallet and go, hey, can you buy this, right? But then again, where do you find the parents? So this on the one side, just giving that as an example. Some of you might have an audience. I hear electric bike rentals. I'm just pulling it out of the audience here. Probably it says primarily male age 45 to 65. Okay, so that could be different. Do you know where your sales come from? Is it basically like the Redondo Beach, and it's near me, I'm in Venice. They show up right then and there and go, hey, we want to rent a bike, right? Versus like, what do you call it? Reserving, I was going to say RSVPing, reserving a bike ahead of time, right? So they show up, and who's the one that wants to, go on there. So it might be a little bit different. I'm not sure if that's how your business mostly goes. Right. So again, knowing who exactly your audience is, and if you have some split audiences like that, it's hard to, or say easier to target it. Make sure you have the right messaging. Again, the parents versus the kids or the grandkids that are making all the buying decisions. Everything you'd want to go through me for the senior in my life right now. So hopefully that makes sense. Thanks everybody for sharing. I appreciate that. But keep sharing in the chat and feel free to network. Share your information, share your LinkedIn profile or your website address. You never know who's in the room. Some of you might want to collaborate, connect, share, do business with each other. So you're welcome to share your information in the chat and connect with each other. Right? There's 57 other business owners in the room right now, so you never know. Let's see. One question came in: is an email list still important with how much we all receive emails? Yes, Arlene. Yes, yes, yes. Watch my email marketing class. It is the best ROI of any marketing tool out there. Double of social media and everything else out there. Email is definitely very important. So watch that class and you'll learn. We do get a lot of emails, but don't judge it based on, we get a lot of emails. Well, you need to be sending emails too, So yes, very, very important. Good question. Okay, so right, everyone's not your customer. You have to figure out how to niche that down. And again, if you have multiple audiences and multiple squirrels, you have to know how to speak to each one of them effectively, right? Because the one thing is not going to work for the other. Okay. So what is a buyer persona? If we just take the dictionary definition of it, right? It's just a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data. If you have existing customers, they have a human face, generally a name, biographical information, right? To show this as a real person. So when you're creating a buyer persona, that's what it is, right? We're just talking about our audience. So a persona versus what we call a target audience. Right. So the difference is the persona is a person. So we have Jake here. He's 33-year-old. He's a marketing director. He has a family and kids. He likes music, jazz music. He has a degree in marketing, right? He's under a lot of pressure from the board. They're a bunch of dinosaurs, and he's trying to, get them on board with, I worked with a company like that. So they like traditional advertising, billboard, newspapers, all that, but we're trying to bring in the digital world. This is going back like 15 years. I worked at a credit union. Um, so that's a person, specific definition, character, details about their habit and work. Where target audience, right, is in more general, more broad definition. Don't talk about habits and who they are as a person. It's like marketing managers between the ages of 30 and 45. They work at big companies. They have an annual salary range of this, right? And it's the don't spend much time online. It's like, well, if you're doing marketing, you generally do. So again, that's a difference when we're talking target audience versus a persona, right? You're imagining when you think about who's buying your product or service. You came up with this product or service, and like, who did you imagine is going to want this product or service? Who is going to walk through that door, so to speak? It might be not be a physical door, but who's going to come in and get that product or service? That should have been something you had in mind right as you're developing this product or service. Like, is it just me that really likes this product or service? And I'm sure there's other people that do too, right? Is it something that, hey, like I was like helping my parents with something and I decided I wanted to go into, the senior market. What was it that took you to that just to that product or service and who you thought wanted it? So very important to have that. This is why this is so important to have that nailed down. Right. So why is it important to create them? So of course, definitely going to understand your customers better, as I've already been saying, right? To understand their needs and behaviors and who they are and what makes them tick and what makes them buy, right? Definitely then we'll be able to tailor your marketing strategies based on that information. Maybe help you improve your product development based on those personas and what they're looking for, what problems you're trying to solve with them, right? Definitely, if you have a sales team, will help communicate more effectively. I was just talking to the gentleman that spent way too much money on marketing with zero results. He said, and I asked, he had a sales guy that he had hired and was doing his thing, and I'd asked, well, how he wasn't very successful. He did some sales, but he just wasn't necessarily making the mark. And I said, well, he might have been good at going and making the sales calls, whether calling or showing up or emailing or whatever. But what was his messaging once he got there? Because it was a very specific industry, a very specific ask. You had to do a lot of education to convince them to buy this particular service that they were offering. So it could have all come down to poor messaging. So making sure that is very important to know and understand your customer. And then of course, hopefully leads to customer satisfaction and retaining those customers, having them come back. If you have a product or service that they purchase over and over again, you want to gain and retain them. So very important to understand how you keep them in the buying cycle as well. If that's, again, you have a product or service that you do more than buy once, right? So when you're developing buyer personas, right, old-fashioned way, figuring out who is this person, who are these people, right? How old are they, right? Gender. Someone said males 35 to 45, right? Are they married? Are they otherwise status? Maybe you work with divorcees. Do they have kids on there? Is that important that they have kids? Do you work with obviously parents? Where are they located? Does that matter? Do they need to be nearby because you have a physical location? They can be global. What level of income do they have? Is that important for your business? So they need to be higher income earners because you have a higher end product? Or do you serve the lower end market? Are they educated? Do they have some college? Or do they have to have MBAs? They have to have degrees, right? Who are they professionally? Right? I'm looking only to talk to CEOs of companies, or I work with middle managers, or I only want to talk to the marketing managers, or I work with entry level people. Do they, are they a boss or are they managed by others? So what does that look like? What are their values and fears, right? What is important to them when considering a product like yours? What objections might they have, right? Got to figure out objection handling. What are their goals and challenges? So who are they? What makes these people tick? It's basically what this comes down to, right? Where do they hang out? Where do they attend live events? What kind of hobbies might they have? Right. So not all these are relevant to all of your products and services, but think like what do those things matter for your particular buyer persona? Right? And we're talking business to business versus business to consumer, right? So for those that are B2B, right, it's all about building relationships with your target audience, right? It's not a quick impulse purchase typically, right? So you're sharing your expertise because again, it's more rationally driven decision making. They need to be educated more on it. You tend to focus more on a niche market, like say for example, I only work with environmental engineers, or I only my audience is HR directors, right? So tends to be a little bit more niche, longer selling cycle because typically there's more people involved in the decision making process, right? You might be dealing with the HR directors, but they have to run it up to the C-suite to get final approval to buy your product or service. So again, main goal is to build that trust and credibility with your content, right? Expertise out there. Where business to consumer, right? It's all about building brand awareness. You're focusing on triggering those emotions, impulse buying. When it says focusing on larger scale market, not like everybody, right? But like I say, males 30 to 45, you're kind of narrowing that down. Or I sell products to women, and that might even be narrowed down as well, right? Not all women. and tends to be a shorter selling cycle, less people involved. Like if I'm on Facebook scrolling through and I see a cute pair of shoes, I'm going to buy them. I don't need to talk to anybody about them. I don't need to build a relationship with the CEO of the company. I'm just buying them, right? So again, that you're creating that impulse and urge to buy with your branding and messaging. So I know some of you might be B2B, B2C, or both, but different ways you're dealing with things. Let's see, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, your Donka. If your customers are businesses, is the buyer persona the company, type of companies, or the decision makers there that you will contact? Or they the target audience? So good question, which I kind of just explained here a little bit, right? So right, you have to first figure out with B2B, right, what type of companies, is it the companies, or hey, I need to reach HR directors, it doesn't matter the company out there. So who's the easiest decision making person there at the company? So if you have a product or service that really, for hey, like let's just go straight to the CEO. Well, not all companies, the CEO is say has to be the decision maker, or you can't reach them, but hey, let's work with the HR director or the marketing manager, or maybe you're focusing on certain industries. So maybe you're only looking to work with law firms, and then you have to figure out who at the law firms you need to talk to. Is it the senior partner, or the what do you call it, the law clerk, the office manager, or the HR director at the law firm? So you have to figure out like who it is. And like I said, it could be a person or a title, or it could be a particular industry, right? So that's it, kind of all over the place with your question on that. Could be either one. If that makes sense. A good question, though. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so what a persona is, right? A specific type of customer with a specific problem who wants a specific result, right? And makes decisions, right, in predictable ways. Okay, what they're not is everyone. Okay, I'm repeating things here. They're not just a demographic profile, right? They're not a made up character with no evidence, right? And of knowing that they want this particular product or service. And they're not a list of assumptions you've never tested, right? So again, knowing exactly who your audience is. I was just talking about with a colleague of mine, a client that had a kind of a service that he had that he thought people would want, but as I just talked to him about, this is before AI, so I think AI could actually do what he was doing now, helping people build like pivot tables in Excel or Google Sheets. And it was like, well, I don't even think it's a product or a service that people know they need. So how do you sell them something you think that they would need? Like this would be useful to a lot of people because it was useful for me. But how do you find the people that don't even know they need it? Right? It's not a problem that they have and going, oh, I have this problem, I'm trying to solve it. They might, if you go out and explain it to the masses and go, look, I could do this thing here and it's magic. And they're like, oh, that sounds like something I would need. That's hard to sell, right? So again, it's hard to sell a product or service if you don't really know who the audience is going to be with that, if they need it. So the 5 persona questions that matter most, right? So, and again, this is kind of repeating, but I just want to make sure you guys understand this. What problem are they trying to solve right now? Okay. What outcome do they want? Right? They're not buying a product, they're buying a solution, right? We want a solution to our problems, right? What stops them from taking action? Okay. What their barriers are? What questions do they ask before buying? And again, some of you might have products or services that they don't ask questions. Like, so if I'm walking into a bakery, I'm just going to ask, how fresh are your croissants? Or do you have any donuts left? Do you have my favorite bagel? Right? Not a lot of hard decision making going into that, right? Where do they go to do research and decide? Right? So very important to figuring out where in the buying cycle, their buyer's journey, right? What's going on right now? What their exact need is, and how you can help them with that, right? So objections, right? Some of you might come across these, right? Their objection might be time, money. Do they trust? Have you built that trust? Know, like, and trust. Maybe it's too complex. Maybe you haven't explained it enough to them. They don't understand it, and confused buyers don't buy. Their fear of change. They've tried it before, right? I get that a lot. A guy is like, I spent all this money on marketing. I'm kind of afraid to do it again, right? So your marketing must answer the objections before the sales conversion. So figuring out what that could be with your product or service here. I'm just making sure I don't have any questions here. Yes, and David, you will get the recording and the slides afterward as well. Looks like we got some networking. See, I told you guys are networking in the chat. I like that. Okay. Feel free to do that. Can reach out to each other. Language matters. Paying attention to what they're saying to you, right? I'm overwhelmed by. I don't have time. I'm worried that. I need a solution that, right? I hear the first one all the time. I'm overwhelmed by my marketing, right? I don't have time to get it done. I'm worried that if I don't do it, right, I'm not going to get any sales and I need a solution that will work and just get it done, right? I can answer all of those, right, with mine, right? Anybody who's overwhelmed with their marketing is going to be a potential client because they're just like this lady in the picture here, right? I'm sure does anybody feel overwhelmed by their marketing, right? Raise your hand. It's okay to say yes, right? So paying attention to these triggers for people, right? Again, they have a problem that they're trying to get solved, right? So we're paying attention to that. They're not just like, I need this product. I need to buy that pivot table, right? They're saying, I need to do something quicker. I need to be able to like, do these, sum up these data sheets or whatever. They're not buying the pivot table, for example, right? So how to find data to create a buyer persona, right? So a lot of different things. Not all of them will be appropriate for all of you, but so you could carry out customer interviews or do surveys if you have existing customers. Find out who you already have. Why did they come to you? Why do they like your product or service? Can you repeat, right? Lather, rinse, repeat. If you have a sales team, get insights from them. If they've contacted their customers, they hear what's out on the street, what people are looking for or not looking for. Plenty of digital data out there, right? Good and bad, but there's a lot of data. Of course, we have AI now, but there's a lot of associations out there that might be in your industry. They do reports and analysis all the time. Census.gov, if you're looking for demographics in your area. So a lot of good information out there to use. Talk to chambers of commerce in your area. They have at least on the business side, but they have a sense too of what's going on in the community, right? Look at the audience of bigger industry players. Do some competitor analysis there, right? Look at what they're doing and how they're reaching out to the same customers that you might have, right? Look at competitor reviews and testimonials, good and bad, because those might tell you stories of what people are looking for, what they are happy about. Sometimes they talk about, well, I had this problem and this company fixed it by doing this, or I bought their product because I had this problem, right? So you can do a little analysis, right? And then social media, tons of insights there. Look at analytics there. And of course, like I said, ask the robots. So if everybody here are using AI at this point, raise your hand, raise your robot hand. All right. Whichever tool you're using, chat, Claude, Google, whichever, right? I would say go to, oops, I don't know why I'm getting this weird pop-up here. I'm gonna hit don't allow. Just got this weird allow Google Chrome to do something. I'm like, nope. um, so go to the robot, whichever your preferred robot is. This is a quick little audit to do, right? This is a very basic prompt, but go to your tool and as long as it can go scan the internet. I think ChatGPT now, even if you don't pay, I think even on the free version, it will scan the internet now and type in based solely on the content on the website, put in the entire URL, your URL, who is the ideal client for this business based on what you read on the website. Very basic. The reason I do this first is to make sure that the robot it can read the site and it's correct, right? So if it goes to my website there, Golden State Marketing, it's going to come back and go, it looks like they serve small businesses, they do marketing, they have training, they do social media, blah, 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 all the marketing. So it's correct. It wouldn't come back and go, it looks like they sell ice cream, right? So you want to make sure if you don't have enough content on your website for AI to read and go, yeah, it looks like they do marketing. That would be a thing to look at and fix. If it comes back saying it does something totally different than what you do, it's not really reading like the ideal client, you don't have enough data on your website. And that's something to fix because then your potential customers don't know, right? And then if it reads correctly, then do the follow-up prompt is this now build me 5 buyer personas based on that above info. And the number of personas, I just put in 5. You can say, just build me some buyer personas, 3 or 10 or whatever it is, and see what it comes up with. Now it should, if the information's correct, it should give you some sense of buyer personas out there and see if, again, if it resonates with what you're doing. But very important, your website should speak to your ideal customer, who you serve, right? What their pain points are, what the potential outcomes are, right? What your solutions are and what the potential outcomes are. Has to be very clear. I see so many websites, or I reimagine them. I call it reimagine, redo the websites with clients that aren't speaking to their ideal clients, aren't really saying very much. We tend to get like, talking about more about the solutions we have, but not really what problems you're trying to solve with those, right? So it might not make sense. It might, it depends on what type of business you have as well. All right. So proof types to use in marketing. Obviously, reviews and testimonials, before and afters, if you have it, again, whatever is appropriate for your business, case studies, right? The process steps that you might have, what kind of credentials you have. Do you offer any guarantees or risk reducers for your service? So, that people like proof, they like peer reviews, they go to other people and say, hey, have you used this service? Are you familiar with it? Right. So if you could, this could be a potential objection handler right here showing them like, hey, I've already done this before. I've worked with this type of client. I have happy customers that are in the assisted living facilities and, bought the products before. So very important to use some of these if you can. And buyer triggers, right? Triggers, they're moments, right, that create the urgency. Could be up against a deadline, a life event. I was just talking to a funeral director who owns a mortuary, right? Could be a death event, a pain spike, something's going on, maybe a new responsibility they're taking on, maybe there's a new seasonal need, right? We're in tax season, like where's my tax advisor? A business problem that became expensive. So a business owner might, hair's on fire, the dumpster fire going on, and there's like, oh, we need to fix this, right? So if you know these triggers, you can time your marketing better around it, right? So say if you're a wedding photographer, a life event or weddings, being aware of like, the cycle of weddings and generally somebody doesn't start planning their wedding until they're engaged, probably usually the woman. You can go into buy Facebook ads and you can, because people change their status to newly engaged. You can market to those folks who are newly engaged with your wedding services. So different triggers, got to pay attention to the different triggers going on. And a minimum viable persona, right? Again, going the same thing. I've already said who they are. Okay. What are they trying to achieve? What pain or problem is driving their action right now? What objections might stop them? What proof makes them trust you? And where do they look for information? So, of course, once you know who those buyers are, then you can determine where they go, right? You can't say, I'm just going to go to social media. I'm going to start doing my Instagram page. And somebody said, oh, I need to set a TikTok up. Maybe I'll go to LinkedIn. If you don't know who your customers are, you don't know where they're hanging out. If those folks that are in the senior market shouldn't be running over to TikTok. Maybe if they're dealing with the secondary or third audience, right? The kids, depending on the age group, I'm in the Gen X, so it's like I'm not necessarily in the TikTok range, maybe through Facebook, right? Where you have more 45 and above. 35 and below, TikTok, Instagram, right? So knowing, and if you're B2B, you should be hanging out on LinkedIn, not, jamming in your cool Instagram page. Maybe some people do get B2B business through that, but and you're not spending any time on LinkedIn. I'm going to question you on that, right? I hear that all the time. Like, I have a really cool Instagram page. What about LinkedIn? Oh, yeah, I have one, but I don't really do anything there. And they're B2B, right? So it's very important. So Bert asked a good question. So if you watch my LinkedIn class, it says, what is the age of LinkedIn? Doesn't matter as much, right? Across the board with social media, the largest groups are 35 and below. Doesn't matter what platform, right? Some of the platforms like Facebook, all generally 35 and below are the biggest categories, but that's where you'll find a little bit more of the 45 plus, right? LinkedIn, right? It tracks with the other platforms, generally mostly 35 and below, but doesn't matter, right? Think about it. If I'm trying, and I always use the example in my LinkedIn class, I have a client, she's a CEO and founder of a transportation logistics business. She founded, where are we now? 14 years ago, I think, 13 or 14 years ago. I don't remember what year it is now. and CEO, multi-million dollar transportation logistics company here in Los Angeles, 70 plus employees at this point. Does it matter what age she is if you're trying to reach a CEO of a T&L company and you want to sell her a product or service? Doesn't matter? Probably not, right? She's so a young 36, 37, getting up there. She's founded the company in her 20s, right? Would it matter if she was like 55, 65, 25, 35? No, she's really bad ASS of a CEO of a company she founded, and a big company. So you would matter, right? So I would say with LinkedIn is the one platform that it wouldn't, you don't go by age, right? We don't care. We just want to reach the CEOs or HR directors. You don't care what age they are, right? So good question though. So a persona snapshot, right? So when you're filling this out, and you'll get these slides as well, and you can kind of fill this out. Who my best customer is, what do they want, what is their problem, what kind of top objections may they have. Good, sit and think and write this down, right? What kind of proof do they need? What kind of proof do you have, but what would they need? Say like, oh, they'd really react really well to testimonials and reviews, and I have a good Yelp page, or maybe you need to ask clients for reviews as well. So where would they look for you? Where's the best place to find you, right? What's the minimum required to build a usable persona? This would be it right here, okay? And here's a couple examples of some buyer personas. So here's one for business to consumer, right? So we have, and it's again, it's a person, right? So we have a busy working mom, Melissa. She's 38. She's married, has a couple of school-age kids, middle to upper middle income. She's a full-time professional. What are her goals, right? She's trying to save time, reduce stress, make smart buying decisions for her family. What are her challenges, her pain points, right? She's always short on time. Overwhelmed, here's that overwhelm by choices, wants convenience, reliability. What's her buying motivations? Products or services that make her life easier, help her reduce that stress, right? Save time, improve family life, right? What matters most to her? So she trusts to reviews, ease of purchase, convenience, good value for her money. Where does she look for information? She goes on Google, she's on Facebook, Instagram, online reviews, maybe friends, right? We go to our peers. What makes her buy? Has to have clear benefits, social proof, right? So again, reviews, an easy next step, right? Maybe strong visuals, convenient, right? So example businesses in this realm could be restaurants, retail, skincare, home services, family focused services as well. So simple takeaway, this buyer doesn't want a complicated sales pitch. She wants to quickly know, how are you going to take away her overwhelm, reduce her stress, right? Help her save a little bit of money, right? So how does this help me? Can I trust you? How easy it is to buy, right? We have to get there right to that point. I had a boss in the wine industry. My only boss really in the wine industry, and he always would tell us, "Don't tell me about the labor pains, just show me the baby." Right? So bottom line it, he didn't want to hear all the details of how you got there, just how are you going to fix this problem, right? And some of you might be baby people, right? Some of you might be labor pains people, and we might have customers that are like, I need to hear all the details, before I make that decision. Others are like, just bottom line it, please. Don't give me, I don't need all the details right now. Just tell me, give me bottom line. How's this going to fix my problem? How's it going to take away my overwhelm and give me more time back with my family? If you're B2B, right? So if you're talking to talk to my client, talk to a CEO of that T&L company, Lorena, right? She's probably gonna be a baby person, but because she's in transportation and logistics and runs a tight ship, she probably wants to know all the details too. She cross T's and dot I's kind of person. But I would probably bottom line it first to her, and if she wants to come back for the details, I give them that, right? So understanding who the audience is and how much detail they want or not. But if you're B2B and you're going to a CEO of a company, I don't care if it's a solopreneur or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you want to come back with the same three things, right? How is this going to make me money, or save me time? Can you quantify that in any way? Right? Everything else is just going to be noise. If you can show them like, hey, if you use my service, yes, you're going to pay me, but this will save you money by not losing employees because I'm going to help you retain your employees. They're not going to quit. I'm going to, whatever my service is going to make them more productive. So that's going to, you have to give them what those numbers look like. How are you going to save them money, make them money, or save them time, right? Very important. I'm a solopreneur. And that's as important to me as the CEO of that Fortune 500 company, right? So here's a B2B buyer persona. Okay, so we have a small business owner, David. He's 47. He owns a small service-based business with 5 to 15 employees. He's established but wants growth. His goals are to increase revenue, improve efficiency, attract better clients, reduce overwhelm. Right, everybody's overwhelmed. What are his challenges, his pain points? Wears too many hats, limited time, unclear marketing direction, cautious about spending. Here's a guy just who has to call me, right? His buying motivation, solutions that save time, improve results, reduce costly mistakes, or help scale. What matters most is return on investment, is expertise, credibility, efficiency, clear process. Where he looks, he goes to Google, LinkedIn, of course, webinars, and maybe he attends one of my classes. He gets referrals. He does some local networking or his industry associations. What makes him buy? Clear value, proof of results, testimonials, a good logical process, and then confidence in the provider, right? So you have to build that subject matter expertise, know, like, and trust, right? So this example, businesses that target him would, of course, marketing consultants like me, accountants, business coaches, staffing firms, etc. So if you're in the B2B space, this is who your persona would be. So how do you, if this buyer is asking, how are you going to help him grow? Are you worth the investment? Can I trust you to make this easier, faster, more profitable? Can you take away that overwhelm, right? Can you take some of the hats away from him as well, right? We're going to talk about messaging in a minute as well. So that's what a typical personas would look like, okay? And then getting to the hand raise, right? So this is how do you talk about your business, right? So what this means, like when I talk about get to the hand raise, this came from 6 years ago to the date almost, just before COVID hit. I had a business coach at the time, and the business coach encouraged her different coaching clients to get to know each other. So she encouraged me and one of her other clients to get on the phone and do a little networking call. So this was just before, like literally, I think the week before COVID and shut us down and everything, March of 2020. Didn't know the gal. We didn't know each other. We hadn't interacted with each other. And again, we're on the phone. It's just kind of, even though Zoom was around, most of us weren't using Zoom to do networking at the time. So I'm on the phone with her, and she introduced herself first and told me what she did. And as soon as she told me what she did, right, her pitch, my hand shot up in the air, and I'm like, yes, 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 yes. I want what you're selling. I need it. And I told her, I said, because she didn't see my hand because I'm on the phone, but it literally shot up in the air, like, I am your client. Now she did time management coaching, and the only reason I didn't wind up signing up with her because like a week later, COVID shut us down, and time didn't matter at that point, right? But I just remember that it's like, how do you get your customer to a hand raise rather than a head scratch? Like, I don't know. Is this expensive? What am I going to get out of it? Right? We don't need a head scratch. So how do you talk about your business to get to a hand raise? Okay. So we're gonna do a little exercise here. I'm gonna say two versions of my pitch. Okay. I'm gonna give you A and B. I want you to listen to both. And once I'm finished, I want you to put in the chat A or B and why you A or B raised your hand. Okay, if they got you a head scratch or whatever. So I want you to listen first. So this is if I'm, introducing myself in the room and I'm giving my pitch. So here's A. Okay, so wait for both. So A is, hi, I'm Patty with Golden State Marketing, and I work with business owners on marketing such as social media, email marketing, SEO, public relations, website development, and promotional products. Okay, so that's A. And then here's B. So, hi, I'm Patty with Golden State Marketing, and I'm hired by busy business owners who wear so many hats, their marketing gets put on the back burner, and all they really want is strategic, focused marketing that actually grows their business. So, A or B, and why A or B? So, put that in the chat. Why did B? I got some B's in here. So, why did it raise your hand? Everybody's just putting the letter in here. So, what was it about B that was different than A that got to the hand raise? Personable, relatable, sounds inviting. Okay, what else? Spoke to my heartaches or headaches, rather. Heart could be heartaches too, right? No labor pains. So the first one, right? I gave you the solutions. I told you who I'm hired. I said I work with business owners, and I do social media, email, blah, 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 right? I gave you the laundry list of services that I offer, and you're like, okay, yeah, sounds like she does marketing. So that's the solutions. What I left off from A was the pain points, right? And the outcome, and really really solution, the outcome. So I'll break this down. So the second one, we'll just talk about the second one. The second one was like, who hires me? Busy business owners. What is their problem? They wear so many hats, their marketing doesn't get done consistently. Solution, strategic focus marketing, outcome that actually grows their business. Right? I didn't talk about that in A. I didn't talk about the outcome, and what their pain points are. I just said I do marketing and here's all the marketing things I do. So how do you break down your pitch into who hires you? Who do you work with? What are their pain points? What are your solutions and what's the expected outcome, right? So if you don't have a hand raised message, I would suggest crafting one, and you all are welcome to send it to me. I'm going to type my email in the chat, and that we'll make sure you get it with the landing page as well. If I can type in my stuff in chat, Patty@goldenstatemarketing.net. Send it to me, email. I'm happy to critique it, help you tweak it if you have it. So just put in the subject line hand raise message so I know to review that. Happy to look at that and help you out with it. But very important, right? How you talk about it. And this will help translate to how do you talk about it on your website, right? And how do you talk about it on social media? And if you show up, in a network meeting, how do you explain? I'm going to give you an example in-person networking. This happened in real life. And it was PACE. This was a PACE thing, in-person PACE. So PACE, this is October of 2024. And I mentioned the date specifically. There's a reason I mentioned specifically the date on that in a minute. Hold that thought. So Pace had a in-person event. They invited me to speak at a marketing panel for the Little Tokyo Business Association. And there's a couple different panels. And afterwards, I had a nice little reception after. And so everybody knew who I was because I was on one of the panels. So this gal walks up to me. And so I asked her what she does because she already knew what I did. And she goes, "Oh, I do tech." And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means exactly. Should I play 20 questions with her? But while I was sitting there contemplating, should I ask what that meant? This gentleman walks up and turns out it's her colleague, which I didn't know. And I asked him what he did. And he said, "I get paid to give you back more of your time." And I literally, again, time thing, I had all my business cards in my pocket. I literally whipped it out of my pocket and like, "Here, take my card. I don't know how much is this going to cost me, but if you can give me back more of my time, because that's more valuable to me because we can't make any more time." We exchanged digital information. He had my card. I almost like tattooed his forehead with my number on there. I'm like, yes, some kind of software thing. So this third gentleman walks up, unrelated to anybody, and he asked the gal, what does she do? And she stuck to, "I do tech." But this time the guy said, instead of what he told me, he goes, "Oh, I do software." I'm like, no, no, no. You tell him what you told me, right? "Oh, yeah, I get paid to give you back more of your time." And I said, "I could use that too. I get paid to give you back more of your time because I take marketing off your plate, right?" So remember I said October of 2024? What is it now? March of 2026? I have yet to hear from this guy. He never fortunes in the follow-up. So folks, if somebody slaps their business card in your hand and gives you their digital information and goes, "Yes, yes, yes," and you don't follow up, right? So again, almost a year and a half, like 2025, 20, almost, yeah, a year and a half later, never heard from the guy. So I don't think I should have had to call him. He wants to sell, maybe just didn't want to sell his software to me. So very important, be very clear so you get them to the yes, yes, yes. I'm slapping my business card in your hand, giving you my credit card and signing up for the service. So can you talk about your product or service to get to a hand raise? All right, very important. So persona is only valuable if you use it, of course, and you should be able to answer yes to these. Does my website headline speak directly to this buyer? Right? The first page, the first place they come in, right? My content topics come from their FAQs and objection, right? So you're building it based on your buyer personas. My offer and call to action feels easy for them to say yes to. I'm showing proof consistently, not occasionally. So hopefully you can share that proof. And I know what I'm measuring and why, right? If not, you don't need more tactics. You need alignment, right? You need help with figuring this out first. You don't want to go. I was just working with a colleague of mine who's rebuilding his business, kind of starting from scratch. I'm like, we need to work on the buyer personas first. I still don't understand like who you really want to work with. He wants to work with entrepreneurs like yourself. He's more on the biz dev side, not on the marketing side, to help them. But I'm like, I still don't understand. I'm still scratching my head trying to understand. He's like, okay, so now I need to work on my website and then I got to get social media set up. I'm like, no, 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 back up, slow your roll. He's a very smart guy. He's done this stuff before, but he's still not aligned with like, we first need to figure out like what it is and what do you want to do? Once you know your audience, what kind of business do you want? What do you want to help them with? What kind of pricing are you going to have before you start going out there and thinking about social media? So he's a few steps ahead of on the wheel there. So very important to have all that figured out. You don't want to spend that time and money and spinning your wheels, so to speak. So very important. So you all are welcome to schedule some time with me if you want to talk about your buyer personas or any part of your marketing. You're welcome to schedule that free clarity session with me. No obligation to do anything with me. Just pick my brain for a half hour. Just leave a few brain cells left for other people. So you can scan that QR code or go to callwithpatty.com to schedule that with me. Just gonna look. I don't think I have any other questions in here. We are finishing quite early. I think that was it. So make sure we'll share the chat files if you guys were sharing your LinkedIn and your networking stuff. Just make sure to grab that chat file when you get the recording. Any other questions? Hopefully everybody's thinking about their buyer personas. You'll get some marketing worksheets to help you write out some things with your marketing plan. And check out my YouTube channel. There is a marketing plan 101 class if you want to watch that. And I will pass it back to Pace to finish up and say goodbye. You're welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. That was great information regarding marketing. So I'm gonna just copy and paste a couple of links on the chat. The first one is the workshop schedule for 2026, March to April 2026.
There we go. And I don't know if you're talking, we lost your audio if you are talking.
Oh, sorry about
Oh, there you
that.
go. Oh,
So,
no problem. Oh,
yeah,
there we go.
I just copy and pasted some links. Just
Oh,
click on
okay.
that for more workshop, the schedule for the workshops. Thank you, Patty, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Hopefully, Swan is available next month to host
Yes.
this series. But this is important information that small business owners need. So thank you for your time.
You're